So today we are really happy to welcome Ms. Alexandra Cloots, professor at the HR panel New Work of the Ostschweizer Fachhochschule in St.Gallen. And she's going to present the fresh off the press first results from her study, or rather a survey, part of the study on new work cultures, and especially how they relate to gender equal strategies to reorganize works and tools that might be developed to make that possible. So we are really excited to have that, to have insights into those first results from that survey that she conducted with HR and HR directors and managers of many different companies of Switzerland. So, Ms. Cloots, the word is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here today. So do you can see the presentation? It's fine for everyone? Mm-hmm. Good. Very good. So today I present you two studies actually. The first study is a big one, and the other one is where we asked the HR managers about the new work culture. And I would like to discuss the results with you during, of course, the presentation, but also after the presentation. When we talk about new work, actually, I always see that we use a lot of buzzwords. We use new work, new normal, digitalization, transformation, everything. So for me, maybe before I start with my whole slides, I just like to ask you, what do you understand under the word new work? Because it's really important today that we have a common definition, of course. So are there other comments? So then I would like to give you a definition, because what you said, it's all right, and also in my understanding, but it's more the design of new work. So new work, when we define it, it's really a way how we work in a self-determined way, and with a package of social skills, doing really the work in the sense of the organization's goal. So this is important that it's really in the sense of the organization's goal. So this we have always to remember. It's not just only for us, but also in the way of the organization. So a little bit only for you as information about my person. What is maybe more interesting is you see that we have a book about work cultures, and it's the wallpaper that I have also here in Zoom, because we choose this picture because we always think that the work culture is something that the organization let shine. So we thought it's maybe a good idea to really take a paper, not to see the whole time people, they are working together. This is also, of course, a big part, but also an organization can be successful when they have a really good working culture. This is the idea of the picture of the wallpaper. So when we start our study, or how we came to our topic, we did another study, of course. We do always studies. And the study was about the digital transformation in organizations. And we came to a result was for us a little bit shocking. So we asked the people, how does digitalization change the organizational culture? And when you have a look on the results, you see that really the organizational culture is going more to efficiency and to the technology sides, rules, instruments, but only 12% of the members or participants said, well, we would have more time and space for humanity. So this was for us a little bit shocking, of course. So it really means that the digital transformation is going more, we use the new time a little bit more, so the people are more stressed. It's always also what we see in our results this morning, it was taking less breaks. 36 people said. So also there we see we are on another stress level than we were before. So this is one side, and this year we made the experience that the work culture changed in reason of Corona. Corona changed a lot, but for me the question to the topic also, if this is really the new normal, I would say no, it's not, because it's a special situation. And as you said, also when I asked for the new work definition, we were looking a lot of balance our homework. So how we can organize to work, to school our children and everything like this. So it was very special. Normally when we are in home office, we don't have our children there. They are normally in school or kindergarten or whatever. So it's a little bit different. So, but in all, it changed maybe a little bit the thinking about flexible work, also not only from the employer's view, but also in the employee's view. But because what we saw is that people are now more interested to go in the office. Before Corona, everyone would like to have more home office. And now we see another way that people are going more to office and really like to be there. So it changed a little bit the idea, what is a good culture of working. And all this we have to remember, we are working, I'm really talking today about the work culture, not about the organizational culture. And work culture means really it's our actions in the workplace, our behavior in the workplace. And it's across the company. Instead of as an organizational culture, there we are refers to the specific organizational values, norms, and practices. So this is a little bit the difference. So we started the project, which is also funded by the EBG, creation of a new work culture in organizations to enable a more gender appropriate work culture. Our aims in this project is to develop an online available maturity test of a gender appropriate new work culture, and of course to deduce implementation measures for this form of organization culture then and test them in organizations. So this is our goal. And the first study now that I present you, it was a survey that we did in the last year. Participants were all employees, and leaders are invited to do this or to participate on our survey.
Alexandra, quickly before you move on.
Sorry?
We have a question. What is a maturity test?
Maturity test we define from our surveys that we did. We define now different perspectives on work culture, or they are important, they base the work culture, and we will develop that an organization can measure how good the organization is in these different perspectives. So for example, if I'm really good in homework balance, if the organization has flexible work, if the organization has a leadership style who allow really a new work culture. So organization can test this, and this we call maturity test.
Okay, great. And while you're paused, just again, the technical question, is there a chance you have two microphones on?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, that was just a technical question.
Yeah.
You can go on. Sorry.
Okay. So the aim of the first survey was what work values shape us, which cultures shape us, shape our work, which cultures do we want in our organization, how do cultures change, and how can cultures be developed further, of course, and are there differences between male and female employees? This was these are our goals or questions in this survey. The participants in all were about 50-50 male-female participants, but we saw, of course, some differences in the descriptive data. We saw that women are not so represented in management positions as the male participants. And also we saw that the women are working more in part-time jobs than the male participants. Also, you see the industries are different. Women are working more in the nursing and care industry or branch, and are working more in the human resources or personal services. These were the differences here in the participants. Here you see different work values. So we asked the participants which work values are important to you. And so we ask for the cohesion in a community, free space in the balance between work and life, self-realization and development, working to live, mastering challenges, progress and prosperity, and of course, social security for the family. And the first, the most important work values for the participants were cohesion in a community and self-realization and development in work. And the third part is then the family, social security for the family. It's followed by free space in the balance between work and life, mastering challenges, followed by working to live, sense orientation beyond work, and in the end, the last work value was progress and prosperity. So we see really the topics are community, self-realization and self-development, and social security for the family. So, it's a German slide, sorry. We ask how do they perceive the work culture in their organization. And you see, we are really going to a new work culture. So it's most of the participants say they have a top-down culture. It's secure orientated, it's centralized, results oriented. So you see, it's not modern or error culture, dynamic, human oriented. It's not. For the different industries, we saw a picture. Maybe you can agree with this picture. So we saw, for example, in industries, we have a top-down, results-oriented, innovative culture. But for example, in education and research, it's more modern and dynamic perceived. And public administration, safety-oriented or rule-oriented. So we see that in the different industries, we have different work cultures for the moment. Even if we are talking all about digital transformation, new work, new normal, they are really different, and this makes always so difficult to say this is the one way how we can go for a new work culture or for a new understanding of work. but the people really desire a culture of error culture, of bottom-up, human-oriented, or also culture, participative, modern, flexible, dynamic. So it's not all we are seeing, it's not only home office what they need, it's a little bit more. It's really a change of the culture. Here you see again, and the only point what we see here is when we are going to, you see the orange line is the perceived work culture, and the blue one is the desired work culture. And we see really a difference between resource-oriented and results-oriented. People or the participants really wish to have a more resource-oriented culture, but they perceive a really results-oriented. And what we always see in our different studies is that employees feel more under pressure. And this is also what we here see in this culture. When we talk about results-oriented, it means really they are under pressure always to do something, to have results, and after this result, the next result has to be demonstrated. Interesting for me was the results about how do employees experience motivation and general conditions in the different industries. And when we talk about the work culture, and when we see I am satisfied with the work culture that exists in my organization, in the industry, we had the highest score and the lowest in the IT branch sector, which was for me a little bit surprising, because normally we say the IT sector has a lot of new work culture elements. It's a high flexibility. They know about everything about Scrum teams and everything what we, and they have new styles of working together. They are used to have home office. So everything what we thought a new work culture should have. And we saw here that the results really demonstrate, but the work culture obviously is not so good scored here in our study. Also, my skills are promoted, and the consideration is given to the compatibility of work and family time. This is the best in the public administration.
We have a question?
Yep.
What's the reason for the low motivation in Bildung?
The low motivation. In the Bildung, education and research, I can't say really, it's only an assumption. In the research and education part, we have also a lot of pressure. We have the cost point always. We have in the research part, maybe also the funded stuff. So we have to get fundings for our research, which is quite exhausting maybe sometimes for some people. On the other hand, in schools, in the education part, we have now new systems of education. I guess also here's a change in the values of education in the different families, which is always exhausting for the teachers. So I guess there are several points that the motivation is there not so good. But I really can't say it based on this study here. It's just an assumption. Is it quite good for you?
Yes. We have another question. Which sectors are represented by industry?
Industry, it's no. Maschinenbau. Maschinenbau, for example.
Construction.
Production part. So engineering, yeah. Engineering production.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Yeah. So based on this, also it's interesting what type of leadership do we need to have really a good culture, to create a good culture. So we asked the participants, what leadership cultures do you experience? And we saw, or what we see is that the most of the participants experience a way of leadership which is called shared leadership. So here in a team we have the experts of some topics, and they lead in this topic. So we don't have one leader for one team. In the team we have several leaders based on their experience. And the next question I'm going quick through, because this is what I find a more interesting point, is what influence does the modern leadership culture have? And as you see, we asked the people for their motivation, productivity, meaningfulness, work culture, skills development, and exhaustion. And we had a look about leadership style and these individual feelings. And what we see is that the modern leadership really has a huge influence on motivation, productivity, meaningfulness, work culture, and also in the skills development. What we see when we have a look on the non-leadership, laissez-faire and authoritarian way, it's very, very low. And we see that the people feel exhausted when they have an authoritarian leadership style. But also when we look at the modern leadership, they are also, the people are not very relaxed. They are also, they feel very exhausted. And this is a point where we have to pay attention for the next design, that we really discuss how people can work in a modern way, and how we can also pay attention to their health, to their balance, how we can stop the big motivation. I guess it's always very, very hard to find a really good balance between motivation, but also to say, stop. And but we have to find ways, because if not, everyone is motivated, but after a while we have also a huge scores of burnout. So therefore we have to pay attention when we create now new work or the new normal. Here, just for you, we also, of course, ask for what are supporting elements for a modern culture. And again, the IT sector, we saw that in the IT sector, the work culture, the people are not satisfied with their work culture. We see that the IT sector do a lot concerning different supporting elements. You have a look at the slide, at the picture you see on the table, that in every element they have high score. But when we relate it to the question, are you satisfied with your work culture, we have there the lowest part. So sometimes, or this is a good example really, that we have really to pay attention what are we doing? Is it the right for our right things for our organization and for our sector? So what we would like to do and what is really important that we change it. We don't have sometimes to change everything. So the difference between men and women that we saw in this survey was, of course, that we saw men are more strongly represented in management positions and have also the higher employment level than women. This is not very surprising when we have a look on different studies. What we saw about the working values for women, balance and meaningful engagement outside of the work are more important than for men. While men tend really to prefer market-oriented work culture, women are looking more for safety-oriented work culture. So there are differences. We have to pay attention when we design a new work culture. Sometimes we saw small differences in the perception of men and women in the management culture. So, for example, women feel that they are more supported than the male participants. And we saw also that we had also in the discussions before that communication is a really important factor when we change our working world, our working culture. So the communication also is becoming a more and more important point in our working life. And men and women experience both their work as meaningful. So they are also both very satisfied with their jobs.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Whether you looked at whether they had children or not. Did you?
Unfortunately not. This is what we missed this time, but what we expect to introduce also in the maturity testing.
Okay.
But I can consider from another study what I did with some colleagues, that there are really difference in the balance when women or when they have family, woman or man, there is a difference. Woman likes to have some more free space, and men want to have some more time with the family, to spend more time with their family. And woman tends to like to have more time for themselves. This is a change, it's a difference what we saw in this study when we asked for a work-life balance.
We have another question regarding the small differences in the perception of men and women in the management culture. Just the question of what were some of these small differences?
The small difference were, for example, that women really feel they are more supported than a man, and also woman feels more that manager should also more demonstrate or more live for a culture. They have to discuss the culture together, and for men or the male participants, it was not a topic.
Okay, great, thank you.
Are there other questions to this study? Because now I'm going to the HR survey, and maybe you also participate on the next study. So.
No more questions at the moment?
No more, good. So this was really the HR survey. So we had 51 participants here from different positions, and also, of course, from the HR. And this study was a little bit more, or it was more after the lockdown. So maybe here the learning of the lockdown is in the results. I don't know. And you see the difference here. The question was, what topics are important to you in terms of your work culture? And we asked them for today and in what is today important and what will be important in the future. And we see in the future will be more important the learning culture and also the compatibility of work and family relatives to be cared for, as you also said in the beginning. Also, a very important topic will be dealing with pressure to perform. And another point is the operational health management in organization will also be more important in future. Today, more important is the work-life balance and the digital transformation, the accessibility and equality of women and men. But here it's really a slow difference. But in future, the learning culture, compatibility of work and family relatives to be cared for, and dealing with pressure to perform, and the operational health management. And it shows that what we saw during the lockdown, or also what the results of the bigger studies showed, that people are really searching for a good way how they can create a good work culture. What we saw in the study is that people are really motivated for their jobs, and you always have to find a good way, motivation, and not to exhaust someone is exhausted, that you have also there a good balance between job and relaxation. Another point that we asked, what codetermining measures are used in your company to implement the work cultures, to learn a little bit how it works. And we see that the most important point or measure is used is each receives accepted basic conditions in the organization for the organization of its working life in compatibility with the family. So here we see that compatibility is a very important issue, and it will also, what we saw before, it will be a very important point in future. Even when we talk about more home office, for example, that people are working more in home office. And another point, rules for the organization of flexible working hours are determined by the team. And I guess this is also an important point, because it's a type of team development also, that, the employees in a team, or the members of a team, really discuss their working time. When are they online, or when do they work from home, when they are present, what time do they need? Some are starting earlier, some later. And so all this is discussed, and it's really given understanding, gives more understanding for the different wishes that we have on how we can design our work.
A quick question.
Yeah.
What's the sample size for the HR study?
51 HR people.
Okay.
So then we ask the people, do the following statements apply to your company? And you see our managers are open-minded and approach the issues of compatibility proactively and without prejudice. Is the most important statement, or the most scored statement in our study. Followed then, we have here 53%, and then 33% said women receive support in our company to help them reconcile work and family life. But there is a huge difference between them. So for me, it's a little bit, it shows that yes, we do something for the difference between male and woman employees, but not that much. Or when we see in our company, we offer different career formats for women, which allow for the compatibility of work and family and are accepted by all. Only 20% say that. So there are not a lot of instruments or tools how we can really support women in their working life, or when women return to work after maternity or a long family break, they're given time to get back to work. Only 28% say yes, we have it in our working culture. Also, this for us was important, or is important, that only 24% say we see new work as an opportunity to create a more gender appropriate work culture, which is interesting because now we are really changing an organization. We are talking about flexible models. We are talking about how we can balance or how we can deal with the compatibility of work and family, and but new work, to create a good new work culture in the organization is not obviously a chance to create this. This was a little bit interesting. So I guess we have a lot of, or plenty of work there.
A comment, Chris, the question in the chat beats me to it because I wanted to ask the same question. Shouldn't we shift from gender appropriate work culture to family appropriate work culture? Yeah,
I guess this is the better wording. Yeah, it's more about this. It's not always only gender, because gender has really the idea of woman, but also the male employees, they want, like as I said in the other study, they tend to have more time for the family. So it's more we have to talk about family topics, yeah, not gender topics at all.
And another question, what is the meaning of different career formats? Is this related to specific job functions or personalizing work hours?
It could be both. It could be working times. It could be, but it's more if there's a leadership career or it's an expertise career, different types of career, and in what time and when we can use it. Yeah, these are different formats. Or project career, there are different types of career that we can offer in an organization, and sometimes we can, maybe it could be interesting to have it more concrete for women, because they spend a lot of time sometimes with a break, for example, a long family break or something like this. And in the old understanding of career, they said a career has been done when we are 40 years old. This is what the old thinking. Now we are going more in a direction of thinking to say, well, it depends on our life stages, where we are. So it's not related to our age, it's more related to our stage where we are now in our life. Sometimes we need some more time for the family. Next time we have maybe more time for our career. Then maybe the free time is more important, so it can change over our whole working life.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. Just the added comment that yeah, I think a lot of the things you perhaps the survey frames as women's conditions for working would also apply for men with families. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Just a reiteration. Mm-hmm. Good, thanks.
Thank you. So for me, the question is more, how do you currently experience your working culture? And do you also experience it differently than before the lockdown. It's more a question to the plenum.
Yeah, if someone wants to speak up, otherwise we could answer this question in the chat and I will read your answer out loud.
I have a little question. Up to now, I think your work culture is looked as if only top down is a career. But people like somebody in the hospital who is working the whole day and then is so tired she can't even think about career. It's not helped from anybody. Not the whole health system is somehow not in favor of career in any kind. And there are also for men, of course, the equivalent in building and so on. So I think the work culture should be expanded. What do you think?
Expanded in which way?
To more than just, how you say, lab and table work.
So more digitalized, you mean?
Digitalized? No, why?
Just trying to understand what you mean by expanded.
We saw with Corona how many people have been, don't think about all these people who work in culture, in health, in essential work for electricity and so on.
Yeah, you mean that not everyone can do home office, for example?
Of course. No.
Is this your idea of the question? That we have to offer other formats or other ways of new work culture in, for example, in the healthcare sector.
Yeah.
There, for example, this is a really big discussion, because there, of course, I can do a home office when I'm working in a hospital and in a care team. But maybe another possibility to have their new work culture is that the teams can do, for example, their working timetable or schedule. They can do it in a team, self-determined, could be an idea. That also maybe the Schichten, Arbeitszeiten, the time can be more flexible more flexible.
Yeah.
This means that, for example, when I say I would like to reduce my work time, that also normally I reduce my working days, my number of working days in this sector, but not the hours per day. Maybe there also could be a new way of how we can organize these working times. So I guess there are different aspects to discuss, and also to discuss what is possible. But also there is, of course, we need a new leadership style then to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
You're welcome. Other questions or comments?
We have nothing in the chat at the moment. One thing maybe I find it very interesting what you presented earlier about research and education. I think the situation for teachers is very different than the situation for researchers. I think this would maybe be lost in the average numbers.
Yeah.
Working in a research culture, we have experienced it as being very flexible. But again, this depends strongly on your line manager, so to speak.
Yeah.
Is this something you saw in your study as people's satisfaction with the work culture, not necessarily based on the sector that they were working in, but really based on the manager they worked for? But there were very specific differences based on your direct supervisor, so to speak.
No, actually for the moment we didn't look at this. No. Questions or comments?
What? If not, maybe we could open it up for general discussion, or do you have more slides?
No, it's just only a more advertising slide that we have our forum in January, where the question is, warum zukünftig noch im Büro arbeiten, where we also have presentations and discussions about the different questions that we had today.
This kind of part reminds me of a question, or rather a discussion. I think that's also pretty recent and pretty urgent. This question of why work in the office at all. That many companies, as far as I heard or read, are actually cutting down on office space. So they take the opportunity of saving money by cutting down office space, paying less rent, so that many people who even do not want to just work from home, they have to much more, and they don't even have a proper working station in the office anymore.
Yeah.
So this is, I don't know, I personally do not like this development because it makes flexibility a must.
Yeah.
It's more like something that's ordered from above, and this whole topic of or this whole area of informal chats over the coffee, this what was also mentioned, this feeling of being a group, being a team that connects apart from work somehow, which is also really helping and fueling work morale, gets lost if I'm forced to work from home, if I do not have a proper desk, if I do not have the possibility of, when I'm in the office, having the picture of my loved ones on a table somewhere. Do not even have a space where I can leave, I don't know, my favorite coffee cup or something. I mean, being silly, but it's the details that make me feel as part of the team, as part of the company. The physical is very important, at least to me, and I think it's that I'm not an exception.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We did this year, we did a study to really the workplaces, and we see that there's a loss of the identification with the organization, and reason of that they are more in the home office. And also what they really missed is their colleagues. They said the cohesion between the colleagues is now it's getting more worse than before. They have really, in reason because they miss the informal talk. They said, well, the communication with the colleagues is less than when I'm in the office. And we also saw in the HR survey, I don't have a figure for that for now, but we saw it, that there will be a tendency to have reduce the workspace in office and to give more the idea of home office. And for me, the vision that I saw now, when I take all the studies together, it will be a vision of an office where we are going to communicate, to be creative, to collaborate, but we are also, when we have to do our work, when we have to work on something, then we are going in the home office, in our home office. So it will, there's really a change. And I guess the problems will be not all the people really like the home office. Some people need the structure of the office. Some people need to be surrounded by their teams. So some leaders are not really used to lead a team, which is a hybrid team. So where we have people in the office, people at home. So I guess, so what I see, there are a lot of new questions that we have to deal when we talk about the new, about this vision of how we work in future.
Mm-hmm.